What's up out there? Welcome to the first episode of Learning Path of Exile. The very first thing we're going to talk about is whether you should do a standard character or a league character. I have my thoughts. I can tell you what I did. I can tell you what I probably would have done differently had I done it over. So, we need to dive into what these different modes are. There is standard mode, there is league mode. Now, both of these, this is the current league is Crucible. This is hardcore Crucible. If you know what hardcore is basically a permadeath kind of thing. Except in this game, if you die, you go to standard league, pretty much. There's a path to everything, but if you die, you go to standard league. So you don't really just lose everything. I think there is a way to lose everything with a certain combination of all this stuff, but that's well beyond any of this conversation. So the first thing we need to talk about is hardcore, and I would not recommend that for a new player at all. This is, see if it's killed in hardcore, you become a standard character. This one here, character killed in hardcore Crucible becomes a standard character. So they're telling you right there off the bat. Is that where you want to start? No, probably not, because you're going to die a lot. I died a tremendous amount of times. Then there is Ruthless down here. This just makes everything that much more difficult. And then there's Solo Self-Found, which we'll get into here in a minute anyway. But let's talk about standard for a second. This is where I actually started. I started off with standard, and this is more persistent. I got a friend of mine that absolutely hates anything that wipes. Like, he does not like Escape from Tarkov with all the wipes and everything they have there. So I would probably recommend him to start with this, because there's no changes to it. Eventually you get new mechanics added into this is what's called the core. So you get more mechanics added into it as stuff like Crucible gets out of rotation for the league. It goes potentially into the core. We're getting that soon with this Sanctum League that's starting in a few weeks, and it's coming up into core. I think it's Sanctum. Now, this does get updated periodically, but not like the league does. And this is recommended for those who are looking for something that is a little more casual with no real end date. You're not going to get dumped out anything. You're not going to learn some mechanics for a week or 10 days or whatever, or 2 months, and then get stuffed into something else that's different. This is always going to be the same until the major patches change it. Now, the Crucible, the league stuff, the Challenge League, this has all the new mechanics, all the newest stuff. So this one is Crucible, so it's got the Crucible League going on with it. But this could be whatever the next one is, the Trials of, I can't remember what it is now, but the next one is going to be something different. And they always try different stuff with it. This will always have the newest mechanic. It typically runs for about 3 months. Now, this one's running a little bit long because of ExileCon and all that. But once the league is done, as I understand it, I've not experienced this myself, but at league's end, your characters and stash get merged into standard. So you're basically going to take all this stuff and just shove it over to standard. It's as if you died in hardcore and got pushed back into standard, pretty much, I guess. And you're going to get, I don't know if there's a character limitation. We'll find all that out. So if you have, I thought I saw somewhere like there's might be a 10 character limit. So I don't know if you complete 2 or 3 leagues, you have to start deleting people out of your standard side. I'm not sure how that works. But this is the newest stuff. It lasts for several months, and you're kind of running through trying to get to the end game and experience everything with it. It might be jarring if you're not planning on continuing down the road and playing league content all the time. This might be a jarring shift going from league content to standard, you know what I mean? Because you're going from what is in that league to core, and core is not the same as what is in league. League has core plus some other stuff. So it might be a little jarring. There's merit in starting with standard mode, and there's merit in starting with league mode. There's pluses and minuses to both. Now, I have been getting achievements. And there is achievements for cosmetics in here. I think it's only on the league content. I don't believe you get anything for standard, and I'm not sure if I've been getting Steam achievements for standard mode. I don't think so. I think I've started getting them on league. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong down below, but I think these achievements are on the league side, not on the standard side. So if that's a thing to you. Now, we've talked about the hardcore and all that. The Ruthless here, this one is really low really scarce items and hard to find. It's just harder, and the items are harder to find. You know, you can check all these boxes. I think you can tick all this and make it just stupidly hard. Now, solo self-found, the thing with this one is you're just not able to trade or join parties. I don't necessarily understand this. I think a lot of people enjoy this mode because they don't have to interact with other people. But I kind of wonder why you just don't interact with other people. You know what I mean? Maybe somebody has a philosophy of use behind this one, but it seems to me like you could just play the regular game and not trade with people. But I don't know, far be it from me. It's a mode here because it's its own thing. I thought there might be a little bit more to it, but everything I've looked up just says that's it. You can't trade with people and you can't join parties. So I think it's a self-imposed thing, but I would think you could just do that with the regular league. But far be it from me. That's whoever wants to do this. Now, my thoughts on this. I started with standard, and I don't necessarily regret that thought. So when I started with standard, we had ExileCon coming up in a few weeks, and I thought, because I started 2-3 weeks ago now, maybe 3 weeks probably, I thought ExileCon was going to be like the start of the next league or something. I thought everything was going to be here quick, and I didn't want to necessarily get started into the league stuff and then get shifted over to standard. Turns out you can beat the story in about 40 hours, and it took me, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that, of just playing on an evening. Now, I play a lot, but, you know, I play 2 hours a night, something like that. Saturdays or Sundays and Friday nights, I might play a lot longer, but somewhere in that realm. And I managed to blow through it in about 2 weeks' time. Let's just call it 2 weeks. So now I'm on the current league, which is Crucible, with my second character. What you might find is, let me talk about one thing first. Do you plan on continuing through the game multiple times, or do you just want to try to get through the story and be done with it? The story is really deep, but it's more like a Souls game story. I don't mean the game and the mechanics. I'm talking about the story. Like, you have to read all the little items and you have to talk to all the different NPCs. Like, there's a lot of places to get the lore from the story. And even when you follow it, it's still hard to follow, so it may take multiple playthroughs. So if you're really only concerned with getting through the story one time, I could see starting with standard mode and then just seeing how you like it. There's not really a wrong answer here. I would have probably started on the league side because that would carry over, and then if I didn't like it, my characters would just end up in standard, if that makes sense. So a lot of discussion about which way to go. If I was to provide a recommendation, I would say try the league out. Just see how it goes. There's not really a downside. The only thing that might be odd is, like I mentioned earlier, that it might be jarring to go in and play stuff with the Crucible content. Like currently we have Crucible. You're getting all that Crucible stuff, and then you get dumped out into standard once the league's done, and now you don't have that Crucible stuff. So it might be a little jarring going from one to the other. But then you just lose that one mechanic is all. And I don't know how much that messes with your build, because the current Crucible League has weapon modifications and stuff like that. I don't know how they're going to peel that off, you know, because it's just built into the weapons. But I don't think, they didn't mention putting Crucible into the core once this league is done. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. But long story short, I would probably recommend trying, unless you're at like the last couple days or whatever. If you've got a few weeks before the league is over with, if they haven't announced it yet, you've got plenty of time, I would think. If they have announced it and you're just right up against it, then probably start with league or with standard. Check it out. You could always, any way, shape, or form, you can always start with league and then see how it goes and then get dumped out into standard, or wait for the next league if it's like a day or two away and just try the next league and see how that goes. You'll have several months to play the game and try it out and see what you like. I was a little bit, I thought the league stuff, I'm trying to figure out how I can say this. The league stuff did not interest me at first. Once I actually played through the core game, played through standard, got into the end game, I thought, this is cool. I'm going to go check out league, just because I wanted to go check it out. I had plenty of time, wanted to go see how it was. And the more I played the league, the more I was like, this is pretty cool. And if I'm going to be starting multiple characters, it probably would just, I'm going to just keep playing the league. There is a lot of in-game depth I didn't even scratch the surface. I just like went into one map and called it a day, but there is a ton of depth in there. But I was in a hurry to get into League ahead of ExileCon and all that. So I just moved over, and that's why I'm kind of moving through the campaign again right now. But trying League out, I get it now. It made sense. Like once I actually tried the League and saw it, I'm like, okay, cool. Because you're not just playing through the same campaign over and over again. I mean, you are, but you're playing through it with new mechanics, new stuff, all new and shiny. So it's different. And the other thing that I've ran into multiple times now is I'll be cruising along and something will drop. Like I'm playing as a ranger right now, and I started getting some armor and stuff for like a melee character, and I thought, I'm going to throw that to the side, and if I get through this and have enough time, I might try out a melee character. My standard character dropped something, and it was a sword for a melee, but it was a unique sword with like no stat requirements on it, so I could just put it on a level 1 or 2 character and just go. And I thought that's really cool, so that spawned me to wanting to go play another character. So I could see how when you're playing, you go from one character to the other, and you just keep trying different things out. And there's so many different classes and so many different ascendancies out here that you can just, it's kind of unlimited how much you can try. So at the end of the day, my recommendation would be either if you're at the very beginning or middle of the League season, just dump into League, try it out, see how it goes, try it, see if you like it. And if you don't, you can always go to standard, or your character will spit out into standard once the League is done, and you can just continue on from there like nothing ever happened. And you can always play standard as long as you want without much changing. They may add some mechanics here and there or massage things as things go along, you know, buff or debuff, whatever, that whole thing. But for the most part, standard is going to be standard. It's going to be the way things are for the most part. But I do recommend League. I would have totally started with League if knowing what I know now, I would have just started with League. So I would recommend people just start with League and see how things go and take it from there. So that has pretty much beaten this horse to death. This video is way longer than I wanted it to be, but we're in the realm of it. So anyway, that will do it for this one. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.